All right. So I saw Christian Hines, Nick Freitas as a co-host on the Nick Freitas podcast, say something, and I saw Romanian TV say something in response, and so on. And I have a conciliatory position on this. I'm gonna say lolbert or libertarian. At this, like I like to say lolbert because it's shorter. Although when I'm speaking instead of text, I like to say libertarian, I guess, because it sounds better in a way. But libertarians and reactionaries both agreed that the state should be small, for the most part. Christian Hines is not necessarily a old reactionary or new right or dissident right person. Sargon of Akkad is more so. Christian Hines is a reasonably new convert, I think, and he's a little more how to impose top-down and power interested and so on. Interested in power. He's kind of almost like academic agent or something, not like the distributist or Sargon or something like that. I want to say that both the libertarians and the reactionaries love or hate the state, but the reactionaries love their nation. And the libertarians want to do fun stuff with their money that is sometimes morally inadvisable or questionable. I don't want to say it's immoral necessarily. So libertarians are a little more coded towards selfishness, and reactionaries are a little more coded towards giving from yourself to everyone else, in emphasis and so on. I think we should have the freedom to be selfish, but I think there should be a encouragement, and I don't mean like, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, mafioso, mob boss sort of encouragement. I mean a gentle sort of like, hey, you'd probably feel better if you gave that person a little bit of money or bought them a coffee when they're begging on the streets or something. You know, something gentle like that, sort of. Personally, I smoke cigarettes, I drink beer sometimes, and I watch porn on occasion. I call myself a reactionary, but I'm sort of liberal reactionary, so I'm kind of coded towards accepting or tolerating minor misbehaviors and so on. I don't think watching porn once in a while is the total end of the world. I just think it should be reduced somewhat compared to what some people do and so on. And I just manage that basically. Granted, in my case at least, I had been waiting 8 years for one particular woman on the promise that she'd come back. You can call me stupid for waiting that long, but, you know. And also, now I've gotten myself into a position where, unless this YouTube attempt takes off and I can make a career off of it, basically, I'm screwed financially and going to be stuck in poverty or something, unless my ex-girlfriend does come back after 8 years and she can make a lot of money herself. So getting a woman and keeping her and taking care of her is beyond me and my capabilities as an autistic schizophrenic at the moment. So the porn thing is just basically just the illusion of intimacy when I cannot by any means get real intimacy is slightly better of an experience than just being dead inside at all times, if that makes sense. And the cigarettes and the beer is basically the same thing, you know, living in rough conditions and so on. The entire reason why I started smoking in the first place, and I almost quit a couple times, getting down about 4 cigarettes a day, is because I wanted an excuse to go outside and talk to the people that did smoke for companionship. And it turns out that it's actually surprisingly good for companionship, because a lot of people in my building today smoke, and It's a way to break the ice for people that pass by and want a cigarette, and we talk a little bit and so on. So it's like, it's serving a purpose in its own way. And the beer thing is mostly just once every 2 or 3 weeks, so it's not that bad particularly. Yeah. And it's like a 6-pack of beer or something like that. So it's not a lot. It's not every week, it's not every day, it's not every 2 days, it's every 2 or 3 weeks basically. So I've got my excuses, my reasons, and so on, but the libertarians and the reactionaries can both ally against the left just fine, but there's an overemphasis on giving from yourself to the rest of society in the reactionaries at times, in the communistic direction, and I can see why someone would call a reactionary woke right because of that. But like I said, we want to gently encourage people to be more giving of themselves to others when they have the means to do so, and allow the freedom to be totally selfish if you really want to be. But just kind of like poking them and going like, hey, you might feel a lot better about yourself if you helped other people out or something like that. And if they don't want to, that's fine. If they want to, or they're thinking about it, that's a positive sign, because we, as a reactionary, even a liberal reactionary, as a reactionary, with my little caveats about my non-reactionary behaviors, I guess, is the libertarian says, let my people go so they can do whatever they want, and the reactionary says, let my people go so they can worship their God. And the libertarian serves himself, and the reactionary serves society. I'm simplifying it a little bit. There's always your family and so on, and your neighbors maybe. Yeah. But they both want the state out of their lives, so they can ally on that principle at least. Now, the reactionary tends to emphasize a little bit of putting Christianity back in the official governmental lexicon and so on, by pointing out that in 1890 the Supreme Court recognized that America is a Christian nation and that they had state churches, not national church, but state churches for individual states in the United States of America. And it's like, okay, and the reactionaries are big on Christianity, whereas the libertarians are big on like occultism or atheism or something like that, basically, or paganism or something. Like Styx, Hex, and Hammer or something. I think a general rule for society, for more people, would be give charitably until it interferes with your vacation plans, or until it hurts the wallet a little bit, until you feel it, basically. And it's like, give until it hurts is one of the ways of putting it. And that might be a C.S. Lewis originated quote, because he basically said what I said just now, the two previous versions. And give until it hurts might be the modernized, updated version, or it might have been like a turn of phrase from before that, or something like that. But if people who are well off give until it hurts from themselves, instead of taking from other people to give to a third party, then we would have a lot stronger charity, and the poor would be taken care of quite well, and so on. And if we had some minor social programs on top of that, in terms of basic welfare and basic disability, paying enough for the personal welfare to get by month to month in between jobs, with a little bit of clothing money, internet money, phone money, and food, and like maybe a t-shirt and a pair of pants or something every month, and the disability person getting about 1.5 times welfare, or 3/4 of minimum wage, like it was in my province of Canada 15 years ago, then yeah. And the rough relation of rent to welfare should be about 3/4, and it should be about half of disability. Um, and minimum wage should pay approximately 2.5 to 3 times as much as rent in order for a good society to exist and really take care of people and so on. That should be the approximate value. The exact mechanisms you use to get there and so on are up for debate a little bit, but that's roughly a healthy society. And I don't think you can force it by just raising minimum wage all the way or disability or welfare necessarily. You have to cut down on rent costs a little bit, and maybe that means kicking out a bunch of immigrants and stuff like that so that there's less supply or less demand of housing for the supply that already exists. And that's why I believe, again, I don't want mass immigration. I want to deport all the immigrants and so on, so that my people don't have to use, we don't have to upset the roughly stable wage and disability and welfare payouts in order to make life livable for those recipients, those three categories. And I believe that small states and a fair bit of free enterprise and so on is approximately the way to do it. And my only difference between the libertarian and the reactionary that I'm really big on personally at the moment is a slight emphasis on punishing the wicked, charitability from the average person to the poor, and the basic social programs for the needy and the poor and so on. And also a slight emphasis on personal morality in terms of the things I engage in and so on, even though it's not necessarily recognizable entirely. But since I picked up reactionary values to some extent, I've grown in less porn, less alcohol or drugs. Well, I stopped doing my favorite drug that's sort of hard, but it was off the shelf and legal completely. Instead, I replaced it with a 6-pack of beer every 2 or 3 weeks, basically. And I smoke like I did before, and so on. So there's a slight change based on reactionary values, even while living in rougher living conditions than I did when I was more degenerate and so on. So the excuse is greater to be degenerate in a sense, but the personal morality interferes with that and so on. And yeah, so it's a bit of a spectrum between selfishness, liberty to be selfish with the small state, and giving totally of oneself in a small state. And I think the thing is, it's okay to be somewhere in the middle as well in regards to that as right-wingers. I don't think we should be leftists at all. I don't like the leftist systems regardless of what they say anymore. I used to, but I was believing in propaganda, not the truth of their behavior. And when I saw the truth of their behavior, I turned against them officially and formally and definitely and so on. So yeah, it's a spectrum on the right, basically, that I'm describing, of give of oneself to others and be selfish and enjoy your own stuff and so on. I think we can tolerate and accept both types in a sort of pseudo, it takes all kinds to make the world go round. I don't think we need to force everyone to be exactly like us on the right necessarily.